Today we're going to be looking at the question, what was life like for Roman women? The learning intention is to explore the lives of Roman women. Success criteria will be to identify different aspects of their lives, to practice writing in full sentences, and to compare the lives of rich and poor women. So, we're going to start off with family. So, Roman women were considered equal to their male siblings by their parents, so they were equal to their brothers. They were part of a family just like sons, and were subject to the overall authority of their fathers. So, in the family, the father is the one who is in charge. In case the father died without a will, daughters had the right to receive a share of inheritance equal to the sons. So if the father died, then the money would be split equally between the sons and the daughters. Married Roman women were given the responsibility to run the house and manage everyday jobs. Some of the jobs that other women took, though, as well as looking after the home, were things like being merchants, so trading, selling, wet nurses, midwives, scribes, and dancers. So lots of different types of jobs as well as looking after the home. Their daily life, women often liked to gather in the streets to meet with each other and visited markets for purchasing supplies. So not too differently to today. Going to meet friends, going to the shops to buy things you need. They also frequently visited public baths and socialised there. Roman women also indulged in fashion and groomed themselves for social gatherings by applying makeup to look beautiful. So again, not too dissimilar to pastimes of today. As you might expect, wealthy women had a much better life than peasant women. They were often educated and taught to read and write. Once married, they had servants and slaves who did most of the hard work around the house. The wife managed the servants, but still had plenty of time for leisure and planning lots of house parties. Fashion. So first we got the tunic, which is the most common form of clothing for women. It was the main bit of clothing worn by peasants and unmarried women. The women's tunic was typically longer than the men's. Next we've got the stola. The stola was the traditional form of clothing worn by married women. It's a long pleated dress held on by belts, which was often decorated by ribbons and had lots of colours. You've got cloaks, which like the men, women wore cloaks on top of their clothes in cold or bad weather. The palla was a typical cloak worn over the stola and fastened with brooches. Then lastly, underclothes. So typical underclothes was a closely fitted light tunic. So tunic over the top, but then a light, closely tight-fitting tunic underneath as underclothes. Hairstyles. Women's hairstyles varied widely. Wealthy women had their hair curled and pinned into place, plaited in the back, or put into a bun. Hairstyles became much more elaborate during the peak of the Roman Empire. So as the Roman Empire became more and more powerful and more influential, with more cultures coming in from around the world, hairstyles started to evolve and become more elaborate. Women's rights. So women had very little official power in Rome. They weren't allowed to vote, and they weren't allowed to hold political office, so they weren't allowed to be in charge. In general, they were not accepted into debates or other areas of public life. Women weren't completely without rights, though. They could own property and run businesses. Some women became very wealthy and held power through their wealth. So some women became very successful in business, and they used that wealth to have power. Once a woman was married, though, she had fewer rights. The husband had all of the legal rights when it came to the children. In the early years of Rome, the wife was actually considered the property of the husband. This changed around the time Rome became an empire in 27 BC, so around the time when Augustus declared himself the first emperor of Rome. Power, then. Women were not technically allowed to hold power themselves. Unofficially, though, some women in Rome held power through their husbands or sons. So if they were married to or had children who were powerful, they could be powerful through them. Wives of senators and even the emperors advised their husbands and often had a significant influence on the government and how Rome was ran. So not doing it publicly, but privately sort of influencing their husbands to try and run the country in the right way. So we've got a few particularly powerful Roman women. The first one is Livia Drusilla. She was the wife of the first emperor Augustus. She was probably the most powerful woman in the history of ancient Rome. Livia had considerable influence over her husband, which made her so powerful. She also made sure that her son, Tiberius, was named emperor after Augustus died. So she had lots of power through her husband Augustus, who's the emperor. Next we've got Helena. Helena was the mother of Constantine the Great. Her conversion to Christianity influenced her son and had a major influence in bringing Christianity to Rome. Today she's considered a saint and is called Saint Helena. So we looked a few weeks ago at Constantine converting to Christianity and bringing Christianity to Rome, and it was thanks to his mother in part, in doing that, because she was also Christian. Lastly, we've got Julia Agrippina. She was the great-granddaughter of the Emperor Augustus, so again, the first emperor of Rome. She, though, was exiled from Rome, so she was told that she had to leave and not return by her brother, the Emperor Caligula, because she tried to have him killed. Later, though, after her brother Caligula died, she was allowed to return to the country by her uncle, the new Emperor Claudius. She then married her uncle Claudius and became the Empress of Rome. She was very, very powerful as an empress and had lots of influence. Some historians even think she poisoned her uncle/husband Claudius in order to make her son Nero the Emperor of Rome. And then when she did that, she was able to rule Rome through her son. Lastly, we've got religion. So in ancient Rome, many women became priestesses and took part in religious ceremonies. Many of the Roman gods were female, known as goddesses. Some of those are Juno, the queen of goddesses, Minerva, the goddess of wisdom, Flora, the goddess of flowers and spring, and Venus, the goddess of love. There are many other ones, but those are some of the major ones. Now, obviously, this is only when the Romans were pagan. Later on, the Romans would convert to Christianity, and so these gods and goddesses would no longer be worshipped. So, that is your information on Roman women for today. What you're going to do is we are going to practice writing in full sentences today, because that is one area where people are forgetting to do over this lockdown period. You're slipping back into just answering questions as they are. So in history, you should always be writing in full sentences, no matter how short or long the question is. That sentence should link back to the question. So for each question on this first page, I have provided the question and the beginning fragment of the sentence, of the sentence starter. You need to use this information from the PowerPoint and the video in order to complete the full sentence by adding in the answer. So an example is, which famous Roman woman became a powerful empress? And so the full sentence answer would be, the famous Roman woman who became a powerful empress was Julia Agrippina. So I want you to do that for those three questions below. So you can write the sentence starter that I have got for the question and then finish it off. I'd like you to pause the video now, complete those three sentences, and then press play when you're ready to move on to your next task. So, part 2. This time I've provided the question and the end fragment of the sentence, so I've given you the answer. This time, what I want you to do is add the start of the sentence, the starting fragment. So, again, an example, which famous Roman woman influenced the conversion to Christianity? The answer would be, the famous Roman woman who influenced the conversion to Christianity was Helena. So you can see in those bottom three sentences, I've given you the end, I've given you the answer. You just need to add the start of the sentence, which links back to the question. If you're not sure, look at the example and look at the examples on the last task. Again, pause the video here, and when you're ready to move on, press play. Your final task This time I want you to have a go at writing your own complete sentences for each of the questions. So I've not given you any of the fragments this time. You're going to do the complete full sentence for each of the 3 questions. Once you've done that, if you've got time left over, there is an extension challenge with a couple of extended answer questions, which are: compare the difference between rich and poor Roman women. So you will need to tell me about the difference between them there. And then secondly, do you think Roman women were treated fairly? And then make sure you need to explain why you think they were or they weren't. That is the end of your tasks for today. Once you have finished your work, make sure you are submitting it through Teams. If you can't remember how to do that, there is a video on my YouTube channel and attached to your assignments showing you how to do it. Thank you for watching.